Pacers lose again in DC, the inverse sweep for the Pacers here against the Wizards. A new pairing with J. Huff and TJ McConnell. Keep your eyes on that. Jarrett Walker, Cam Jones, Quenton Jackson, Ben Shepard all deserve your attention. So many scattered thoughts about the Pacers and tanking news of late all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday/weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, still in Capital One Arena, where the Pacers just lost again to the Wizards, this time for the opposite reason as last night. Their defense, atrocious for three quarters. Really nice start. They allowed 22 in the first quarter. A new pairing is developing. Everybody playing is contributing on offense, and then they just fall flat on their face defensively for the last three quarters of this game. 109 points allowed across the last three quarters of this game, but a new pairing to keep an eye on down the stretch of the season. Some young guys worth talking about, of course. Scattered thoughts about many Pacers topics du jour that people keep commenting on, and so much more still to come. There's always interesting things to talk about, even in games like this. But games like this, what does that mean? Well, this one is really interesting because early, Pacers look pretty good. And they had a really good thing working early that I think will be a key topic of focus. And the player involved is standing right over there with his family. J. Huff starts at the 5. TJ McConnell starts at the 1. And they're not going to be starters when the Pacers are fully healthy, but they are going to be paired more. Entering this game, they had about 240 minutes together this season, but that's only about 1/5 of Huff's total minutes and 1/3 of McConnell's. They're about to play together a lot more, right? And they were rocking it early, right? McConnell, the Huff pick and pop, then a pick and roll for a McConnell basket, then another play. McConnell gets it tough. He's fouled. J. Huff is hooping. He has 6 of the Pacers' first 8 points and then 9 points in 5 minutes. He's red hot early to start the game. The Pacers are up big, and you think, okay, they have a little more veteran know-how on the floor tonight. They're going to win, and then they sub, and the game immediately flips, as it did last night. And as soon as the benches were in, you could check the game chart and see it. The Wizards really just kind of roared back. Pacers were up over 10 in the first quarter. That lead was down to like 3 late in the frame. Pacers went up 15 early in the second quarter. That went down to like 6 late in the frame. Even though they were up double digits at halftime, there was so many runs that coincided with when the Pacers would sub and mix and match. And some of that showed up the same way it did last night, right? The same turnover issues, 21 for the Pacers in this game. Even though they had better rim pressure, they could not take care of the ball. They didn't have as many WTF kind of shots. They had that many WTF kind of lineups. But everybody in the first half for the Pacers, except for Jarrett Walker, ironically, made multiple shots, right? It was a not bad offensive first half of the Pacers. They were up 11, I think, or 12 at the break. Like legitimately solid first half basketball, despite a lot of things going against them, a lot of runs going in the Wizards' favor. And they would have felt good about that on the scoreboard. But halftime should have been a sign that weird things were possible, because the leaders in minutes at halftime of this game were Talon Peter and Kadari Richardson. As let's say atypical for an NBA game. I apologize if I said Kadari wrong, but I heard it a million times tonight in the arena on the PA announcer. And in the second half, the weirdness really manifested in that the Pacers defense was bad in the second quarter. They gave up 35 points, but they scored enough to keep the game close enough. They scored over 40 that period themselves. They were really rocking it. Everybody was scoring. And then the Pacers gave up 35 in the second, 35 in the third, and 39 in the fourth. 109 points in 3 quarters. Look, you can talk about their motivations of the result. You can talk about who is and isn't playing, the goofiness of lots of stuff that I'm going to talk about. That's all fine. You should talk about the context of those things in a game like this. But even the Pacers and Rick Carlisle and everybody, the available talent should defend better than that. And they just couldn't stop anything for the Wizards for long portions of this game. Alondas Williams, who I think only plays well when I'm watching him in person, apparently, because every time I see him, I think he's amazing, and he like barely is hanging on to an NBA spot. Had 25 and 10. He lived at the rim. Sharif Cooper, who I thought was going to be awesome in the draft because I believed this was possible from every night. It's not. Was 8 for 11 with 18 points. Will Riley was kind of skating around. I'm a big fan of what he can do. Tristan Vucevic was making everything. Trey Johnson was doing stuff. Bilal Coulibaly was trying to dunk everything. And all of a sudden, the Wizards can't be stopped. And some of that is they made some shots, but not like an unreasonable number. They were 6 of 29 from 3, 21%, and yet they shot 58% from the field. That's not just like shots went in. 78 points in the paint for the Washington Wizards in this game. Of course, that points to squarely a couple things. Rim protection, which was an issue for the Pacers in this game, and some of that connection, rotational things to cut off the rim are going to be more challenging when you're playing lineups that don't have any familiarity or hardly any minutes together, and that's going to be the case for the Pacers in a lot of games for the rest of the season. But some of that was just very poor guard your yard, typical defense kind of stuff that is day one defense, like day one of learning basketball, not day one of being in the NBA, that the Pacers were failing at for a lot of the night, and it never got better. Credit to the Wizards for their 10-day guys and their two-way guys just balling. But the Pacers, you hope if you're the Pacers that your 10-day, they don't have any, but your two-way guys or your guys who are playing will defend better than that, and they just straight up didn't. A lot of poor plus-minuses on the Pacers' second unit that could not keep the Wizards out of the paint, that could not get enough stops, and it never got better. They airballed, and then the offense eventually, when you're playing half court, does kind of fall apart. Right? The Pacers airballed 3 threes in a row in the third quarter. So even as the Wizards start dropping like flies, Justin Champagnie, he's done. Tristan Vucevic, he's done. The Wizards still ran away with it. They got their lead up to double digits. The Pacers were winning in the fourth quarter of this game and lost by 13. Right? A dreadful close to the game for them, and they just couldn't guard. So many of you listening would argue good results, and that's fine. I don't think that's wrong to think that. I think it's totally reasonable to think that. The inverse standings say that these were good results for the Pacers. You always hope along the way to find some sort of successes, and they did, right? We'll get to a couple of the guys that were good in this game. Kim Jones had double-digit assists. Talon Peter and Jarris last night were both good. Like, they didn't walk away with nothing from these, but you just hope guys show a little bit more than they did. In times like this, 131 allowed, 109 and 3/4 to the Wizards is really tough to swallow in any sort of competitive basketball environment. Alas, that is how the Pacers lost this one. We'll run through a couple of the players here in this first segment, then a couple more in the second segment as we talk about some of the other things that are related to the Pacers from around the NBA. First of all, the two guys I want to get to are maybe the two best available Pacers in this game, depending on, you could rank, McConnell in this mix, etc. That I want to focus on. One is Jarris Walker. Again, Jarris was great last night with leading the team in all three of the major stats and career highs in rebounding and assists. Tonight he didn't do that. He didn't reach 14 rebounds or 7 assists or anything like that, but he was close. He had 12 rebounds, 3 offensive, and he told me after the game last night that offensive rebounding is a focus for him right now. But to follow up 14 rebounds with 12 is significant. He played over 30 minutes, 6 assists, so 1 off of his season high that he set last night or tied last night. He did a lot of things that I think he'll regret. 5 turnovers. He did not shoot it very well. Before I run through my individual notes on him, I think it's refreshing for Jarris Walker and really for the Pacers that he can now have a good game, like a very obviously productive good game, without having to just make shots. Right? How many times this season was the line for Jarris to be productive or not productive was, did he make a few threes? And he, entering the season, was a 40% three-point shooter. That wasn't happening to start the season. So there are a lot of games where the shots did not fall and he was not helping in any way. And now, with his, he resurged his shot, and now he can do a lot more. He is showing that he can contribute in major ways without having to make the shots. I think he started 1 for 8 in this one and then made 2 of his last 3. He did make all of his makes were from 3. He was 0 of 2 on 2s. You'd like that number of attempts to be higher. But the fact that he can have a game like that is certainly telling. He had some not awesome fouls early in this game. His turnover to open the third quarter was particularly atrocious, just kind of threw it to nobody. But major progress, even still, that his poor, air quotes, games are this now, right? Without ripping threes, he can have a huge game and still be very much contributing and very clearly one of the best players on the team. If you go back to the game they played in Detroit when they rested a bunch of guys, and they scored 78 points, I said that was embarrassing because usually even in games where a lot of guys are resting, the best players pop and still show you like they're the best players. They have things they can do, even in atypical settings, to make them good. And since then, Quenton Jackson has done that every time, and Jarris Walker has not done that every time. I find that to be extremely significant for the Pacers' short and long-term goals with Jarris. He continues to play well. The other guy, of course, we're talking about is Quenton Jackson, who did play in this game. Pacers juggling two-way availability with none of their two-way guys have enough active games left to play in every game the rest of the season. So perhaps 1 or 2 of them will be active sometimes and not in others. Depends who they play, things like that. Q was active in this one, and he's just clearly a good player, right? I mean, what is there to say? He didn't play last night, so I'll spend a little bit of time on him. But 13 shot attempts led the Pacers. They were just so easy for him to get 9 twos. that he just like waltzes around whoever he wants to get 4 free throws. You'd like a little more passing, more turnovers than assists isn't good, but 21 points was impressive for him. Him and Jay Huff were both former 2A Wizards players. They both played particularly well today, and Q just makes it look incredibly easy. He's so fast and shifty that even when there's some stinky plays for the Pacers or there's some rough possessions for the team, he just gets places that other guys on the floor with him cannot do. It's insanely fun to watch, which is also important. And so that was, I think, a big spearheading part of their offense during this game. And in the third quarter at one point, I thought, man, Q's been good. Like, I have plays that I've noted, but it doesn't feel like he's had like that crazy of an impact. And so I checked the box score. Let's see. He had 10 points on 3 of 5, right? It's like, that even on a not even poor, that's the wrong word, even on a night where I'm like, man, he's been a little less visible in the second half. It's like, oh, he has twice as many points as shots. He's clearly good. That's why I predicted he'd get their last spot. He's just a good player. The Wizards score. They throw it to Q. He runs right at his defender, tries to score in transition, and gets a bucket at the rim. He's fast. He's physical. He brings energy. I mean, this sounds so lazy to say, but I would conclude with he's just good. He just is, right? And maybe he doesn't have a lot of the traditional, like, clear pick and roll ability or like, oh my gosh, what a laser pass. And a lot of his shots are just like, hey, I'm more athletic and faster than you. But it's functional. It's actually functional because he finishes the plays and gets to the cup almost every time. That's important. He's clearly a good player. And I think the Pacers should try to give him a contract of a good player. That is up to them to decide, but he continues to pass his auditions when he hits the floor. A couple other players I want to touch on. I want to talk about Ben Mathurin, balling for the Clippers. I want to talk about the anti-tanking stuff the league is doing, which made me literally LOL, and some other stuff that you need to know. All coming up here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, let me very quickly talk to you about Quo, new year, new systems. This is the time of year when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything easy for everybody with one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It works right on your phone or your computer. You can even keep your existing number, and they have a smart AI agent and tool that will help you log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That is QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Wizards for your second listen. Locked On Clippers, we're going to talk about 4 other NBA teams in this segment. Make any of them your second listen if you want to hear more about what's going on with teams the Pacers probably care about just a smidge at this moment. Okay, we continue in Pacerland as they lose to the Wizards twice in a row. Pacers back after last night, but again after tonight with the top lottery odds in the league, a game ahead of the Wizards now in the win column, which is hilarious to say that that's how that works for them at this stage of the season, but that is now reality. Just goofy how these games go. I believe, if my schedule math is correct, for those of you that just hate these games where it feels like / looks like / probably is the case, that both teams are trying to lose. The Pacers play Dallas Sunday. That's possibly a game where both teams try to lose. They play Memphis on March 1st. And outside of that, they don't have another one for a long time. They play Brooklyn April 9th, and they play Sacramento on March 10th. I think that's the only 4 outside of teams that might have their playoff seed locked up, where both teams will very clearly have more intentions to lose than win. There'll be a lot of games where it doesn't necessarily matter as much to their opponent. So if you hate these games, the last 3 for the Pacers, and perhaps their next one, so 4 in a row, the end is potentially near, where they can more comfortably give minutes to their better talents for more time in the games. Let's talk about many other things from this game. Taylor Peter made a 3, and the way he was handling the ball was actually more impressive to me in this one. He had 12 points, so 3 straight in double figures for him. He made 3 twos. That's a positive step for him. 4 steals. To me, the fact that he was getting places with the ball was noteworthy. Like, I don't think he's a point guard necessarily, but the fact that he has been able to play through mistakes and play more free, and the way he plays with some confidence right now makes him look just way, way, way more effective in my eyes. He's been impressive of late. He can't play in every game for the Pacers the rest of the season because he was active so much early on his 2-way. But as he continues to get chances, he's proven that he's something. He's doing a good job and is actually playing better than I would have thought, given his let's say, up and down season he's had with the boom, this series has been up for the Pacers since they've relied on him of late. Ben Shepherd, another young guy of note, he seems to be low-key improving as a rebounder. He had 5 in this game. He got one in traffic, and that made me look, and I was like, oh, wow, he just got a rebound between 3 guys. I wonder how many he has. He had 4. It was the first half of the game. I'm not calling like Ben Shepherd an elite rebounder or anything, but for a Pacers team that just lost one of their best perimeter rebounders in Mathurin, seeing Ben Shepherd kind of evolve and step up in that role has been noteworthy. He had a nice lefty drive for a good layup. He just had a really nice first half and a tidy game. Overall, I thought both of his games out here were comfortable and good. There's not any questions about him, but he was plus 13 in his 20 minutes. Ben Shepherd is clearly a useful player. 8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in his limited minutes. Last guy, Cam Jones. I feel like every game Cam Jones plays the rest of the season, he will be a topic on the show. He is of major consequence for their short and long-term planning. Interesting game, right? He was dealing with the back thing. He was questionable when he came in. He left the game with that back issue, and it was very clear he was so upright so often throughout the late parts of this game. I think Rick Carlisle even said when I was talking to him post-game, they probably should have maybe shortened or had one less stint for him for health reasons, but he did try to play through it. He left with like a minute to go. The back clearly tightened up, right? He looked very stiff and upright, but some good things, some bad things, right? A mid-range floater I thought was very tidy, but some of his early drives when he got below the foul line didn't have the best finishes and passes. He was 2 for 9 in this game. That's really off, but he played 38 and a half minutes. They're clearly trying to give him all he can handle there. 6 turnovers he will not be happy about. He never is. He hates when they lose. Only 4 points on 9 shots. That's not good. 11 assists, though. The ball movement was a little better. He was getting it to his teammates, getting downhill for that. Like, he had a nice over-the-right shoulder finish on a drive. He had a beautiful dart to a cutting player from the weak side right behind me on this basket that I was like, okay, that's a great read that he needs when he's on the left side of the floor. I think it got deflected and the Wizards got a steal on it. He had a lob to Quenton Jackson. That was a great read, but poor execution, kind of early career Jarris Walker-y. So you can see where You can see where Cam's reads are improving. You can see where they're trying to improve his ability to get to the basket going both directions and not just with his left hand, all sorts of things that he needs to get better at. You can also see the warts in his game still with some efficiency things and some turnover, stuff that he can clean up. And he told me after the game that he is looking more into and he is watching film of late because he's playing with more consequential teammates and opponents, right? That matters quite a bit when evaluating the quality of what a player is doing. That's basically all the notes I have from this game, which is crazy. I barely mentioned J Huff. He was heat checking threes. He had 22 points in less than 16 minutes. Micah Potter gets the lion's share of the minutes at center, but they were both very good. 18 points for Micah Potter as well. I feel bad glossing over him. Kobe Brown had a few rebounds. I'm just like, how did he even get that? He just skied in for it like crazy, but I don't have a ton of notes on those guys. TJ McConnell played a very typical TJ McConnell game. He was back from injury. That's everybody. I don't have very many notes on the vets outside of the McConnell-Huff pairing becoming a thing that I'm now gripped by. I'm very interested in that, and I think the Pacers are too, because that is, again, going to be their 1-5 combo of the future. Okay, a few things. One, Milwaukee played New Orleans tonight. Memphis played Utah tonight. That means some shakeups in the world of the Tankathon standings. Memphis, their starting lineup was guys that, like, if you don't follow the NBA very much, you might be like, who on earth is that? They won. They actually won the game against Utah, and the Bucks just smacked the Pelicans. I continue to be kind of confused by the Pelicans' motivations, but that's not really important. The Bucks are legitimately decent of late. At least they figured out some sort of stride. So distance now in wins from the Pacers, and the 8th worst record is 6 wins. Dallas has lost a bunch of games in a row. They're 7th worst. They're actually kind of in this mix now. But Memphis might be, I think, the ceiling for the Pacers in terms of air quotes catchable teams if they win a certain number the rest of the way. But Dallas might actually also be the answer there. I think the Pacers would have rooted for both Utah and New Orleans in those games, but 2 teams in the bottom 10 of the standings did in fact win tonight. And now the only teams with wins in their last game in the bottom 10 are the Bucks, who beat the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, who beat the Jazz, and the Wizards, who beat the Pacers twice in a row. Every other team in the bottom 10 has lost their most recent game or most recent games, plural, to this point. So that is, of course, of note in the inverse standings. Speaking of the inverse standings, ESPN reports, what is this? Just before the first game between these two teams, I'll pull it up on my phone, actually, so my computer doesn't lag with me switching tabs so much, that the league is submitted a proposal to teams about possible anti-tanking measures that would be implemented next season. I cannot stress that enough. I've seen people being like, oh, the Pacers pick's going to get stripped. No, these rules can't go into effect this season. You can't really change rules at all. mid-season. Shams Charania reported, though, that all 30 GMs were informed of anti-tanking rule changes that could be in effect. And then he posted some of them, and I hate all of them. I will run through why I hate all of them right now. Not all of them. I mostly loathe all of them. But first of all, after last night's game, I asked Rick Carlisle about it, just straight up. I said, first of all, did you know about this? And second of all, do you think this is something the league needs to be doing? He said, yes, it's great news, right? I think most people I've kind of surveyed that I know who either work for the Pacers or around the Pacers or for different teams are in favor of something like this. I think most everybody is, even people. No, I think people understand why tanking is a thing and why this year feels different. Here's the potential things Shams reported. First-round picks can be protected only top 4 or top 14 plus, so lottery later. That's fine. I think that's actually okay. I think the real thing, if they're getting that's not a change that I would be making. My change with protected picks would be if you trade a protected first, it eventually has to become a first. Firsts that become seconds really incentivize teams to do what Utah and Washington, and I'm not saying those teams are doing anything wrong, are doing, which is try to keep it as a first for as long as you can. But that's the only like decent one. Next one, lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline. Okay, teams will just tank earlier in the season. Don't like that one. No longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years. Don't like that one because if you know a team can't finish in the top 4 and they stink, that means teams in the middle are going to tank harder. Their odds of getting a top 4 pick go way up. Teams can't finish in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals. Come on, the very clearly anti-Pacers /Warriors /Cavs rule that netted James Wiseman and whoever the Cavs picked. Is that Garland? Was that, I think it was. Was that, no, it was, yeah, Garland or Mobley, whatever, or whoever the Pacers pick ends up being. Come on, like, what are these teams supposed to do when LeBron leaves and Durant leaves and Clay gets hurt and Tyrese Haliburton gets hurt and the rest of the Pacers all get hurt? Like, that one sucks for very obvious reasons. The only time a team goes from the conference finals to the bottom is extreme situations. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. The WNBA does this, and I actually think this one is decent / works, but you would see longer. I think you'd see a lot more longer tanks, but you would see fewer shorter ones, if that makes sense. Like you wouldn't see teams who get in protected pick or screwed 1-year situations really dive to the bottom, which does have meaning in the W and does have value. So I actually think that one's okay because I've seen it work in another league, but that league only has 12 teams and now has more. So that one would be different in a 30-team league. Lottery odds extended to include all play-in teams. I actually am for that, to motivate teams to make the play-in. And flat odds for all lottery teams, absolutely not. Teams would be taking their way out of the playoffs to get high lottery odds. So most of these stink. Most of these, I posted this, and it seemed like a lot of people agreed or at least understood what I was saying. I think most of these suggested changes would either just move the tanking to earlier in the season or would move where in the standings teams try to manipulate their spot. Until you incentivize teams to actually win or do not tie the draft to records, nothing will truly change the behavior of teams. Just slightly tweak it or change the incentive of when to actually do it. But the Pacers did respond to it. That is that. Last thing, the other thing that happened of late, Ben Mathurin went crazy for the Clippers. Awesome for him, 38 points as they won against the Nuggets. As Ben Mathurin, awesome moment as he distracts or says whatever to Jamal Murray right before Murray misses the final free throw of the game that would have tied it. And a lot of people commenting, very clearly a thing about how stupid the trade was. First of all, I said this would happen. I said Mathurin would be better for another team. He's clearly talented. He's on a team that plays mid-tempo now. He's going to do better. He just is, right? Second of all, everybody who – I got comments about this. I got a few tweets like, see, look at this game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying what I'm about to say bad things about Mathurin. It's just rich that is people doing that after he balled out and not the first 2 games he had with the Clippers that were not as good. He's been great on defense. He has 3 steals in every game for the Clippers. That's great. He got to line a bunch in their second game and Kawhi hit a game winner. I'm watching him play, guys. Like, I'm seeing it. I know he's good. I always have thought that Mathurin is good. That's not the reasons that trading him made sense. And it's so disingenuous that people are like, he had 38. See, it's like, what about the first 2 games? What about a lot of other stuff? So I find those comments to be a little rich. It's okay to say that you think Ben Mathurin is very good and might be awesome for the Clippers without saying that it's so stupid that he got traded. Like, it made very good sense to a lot of people, including the team that actually traded him away. But yay for him, like truly yay for him. He's playing very well. Isaiah Jackson getting minutes too as the Clippers go to a 3-man center rotation. But good for Mathurin. He's in a very good spot for him with where that team is headed, the lack of guards they currently have right now. He's basically playing point guard for the Clippers. So He's going to put up numbers, and I will predict again when those teams meet on, I think, March 4th, March 3rd, Ben Mathurin against the Pacers, he's going to score 7,000 points. Like, there is not a limit to the number that I think he will score in that game. So I expect many comments of the nature when it comes. But yes, believe it or not, the very talented player is still very talented on another team, and that is a distraction from what actually just happened right behind me. That, everybody, is Pacers Wizards. Thank you all for rocking with me on this little quick trip to DC. Pacers back in Indy on Sunday against the Mavs. I'll, of course, be there. Thank you all so much for listening today. You can find me on social media at Tony R. East and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. We'll be back Sunday nights talking Pacers Mavs. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.